Okay. All right. So I am going to start the slideshow. Let's see. Need to go back to the Zoom link and share my screen. There we go. And is that working for everyone? Can someone come off mute and let me know that you can see my screen?
We can see it.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So yeah, as I said, welcome to the August ECEF monthly webinar. I'm glad you can all be here. We're going to get started right away. I'm going to go quickly over the agenda for today. So we always start at 11:05 just to give people time to sign on and get the interpretation set up and everything. So we are starting today with updates from the evaluation team, and that'll go until around 11:30. Our timing is always flexible based on just how much time ends up being needed. It's hard to calculate to the minute. And then after the evaluation team finishes their updates, I will give some updates related to ECEF and programming updates. And then we have some time for breakout rooms for grantees to get to connect with one another in smaller groups. And then from 12 to 12:15, that's always optional. If you're able to stay, that's great. And this time I'm going to be asking if people have anything from the breakout room discussions that you want to share out. You're welcome to share during the 12 to 12:15 period. But there's no pressure. We don't need an assigned person to report back. It'll just be flexible for whoever feels like sharing. So with that, I'm going to go to the next slide and ask the evaluation team. Oh, there's a reminder for the sign-in sheet. I put it in the chat a couple of times. When I'm sharing my screen, it's hard to keep copying and pasting. So if one of my team members could copy it or paste it in there a couple more times as people join, that would be really helpful. And now we will get started with the evaluation update. And just let me know when you would like me to go to the next slides.
Awesome. Thank you for steering, Emma.
Yeah.
It is good to see everybody. We are excited to share back with you today what we heard from all of you. As you might recall, we sent out a survey a few weeks ago asking for feedback on the soft launch process. As you know, we are always interested in learning more from you about how we can better support that process. So, next slide, please. Just wanted to start with huge gratitude to all of you. We had totally amazing participation in this feedback survey. I know that we're always getting surveys and this, that, and the other thing, and we don't necessarily take the time to fill them out, but you all filled out this survey. We got 22 responses, which I think is probably almost everyone. So we're so appreciative of that. And just wanted to say thank you for taking the time. This feedback is really important. I think, did you skip over a slide? Nope. Okay. I'm forgetting my own presentation. Thank you, Emma. All right. So what did we hear from you all? Overall, I would say we heard that the data collection logistics with the soft launch really went pretty well. So almost all of you said that storing your data and then submitting the data to PSU CCF was pretty easy or very easy. So that was great news. Setting up your own internal data collection processes, understandably, was a little more challenging and complicated for some. Most of you still said it was pretty easy or very easy, but there was definitely a chunk of folks who said it was challenging, ultimately manageable, but still challenging. And then 5% said that it was somewhat difficult. So, and you'll see that this is a theme throughout this feedback, just wanting to make sure that everybody understands that moving forward, the PSU CCF team is happy to provide additional support. So if you did experience some challenges with the soft launch, When Alexis circles back to you later this fall to start planning for the next round of data collection, let's be sure to really check in about those challenges and do some collective problem solving together. Next slide, please.
Lorelai, I just wanted to say something really quickly that I forgot. And that is that my colleague Lindsay is going to put the translated evaluation slides that are in Spanish in the chat. I think you can see when I make changes on my screen, so I'm not going to go check if they've been put in. But Lindsay, if you're here and you haven't put them in the chat, if you could, that would be great.
They're in the chat, but thanks for the reminder to out loud. I think that'll be helpful.
Great. So those of you that are wanting to read along in Spanish, those are in the chat for you to download so you can view those. And I'm reminding myself, as well as anyone else speaking, that we should try to speak slowly because there's interpretation happening, and I often forget that. So thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
No worries. Thank you. Okay, so we also heard from most of you that it was pretty easy or very easy to facilitate staff support for the evaluation, as well as staff understanding of each of the individual questions on both of the tools. At the same time, we also heard that it was a little more challenging to facilitate staff understanding of the purpose of the evaluation. And I think that's very understandable. 77% said that it was pretty or very easy, but again, there was a chunk of folks who said it was challenging but manageable or even somewhat difficult to really support that staff understanding of why the evaluation was necessary in the first place. So this is another area where the PSU CCF team is happy to help do some brainstorming with you to see what might be helpful there. Next slide. So in terms of training staff to do the actual data collection, again, most of you said it was pretty easy or very easy to train staff in how to explain the evaluation to families and how to invite participation. So that's fantastic feedback. One grantee said it was challenging, but manageable. Again, we did hear it was a little more challenging for some to train staff in how to support and facilitate families' participation. So again, most of you said it was pretty or very easy, but there were definitely a couple of folks who said that it was somewhat difficult. So again, this is another place for us to do some collective troubleshooting and talk about how the PSU CCF team might be able to help in the next round of data collection. Family engagement in the whole process was really high. Again, it's like another one of these places where you all pretty much knocked it out of the park here. 81% of you said it was pretty or very easy to engage families and facilitate participation. But again, we had this chunk that said that it turned out to be somewhat difficult to engage families. Likewise, we heard from most folks that families were pretty or very interested in participating. But then there was this chunk who said families didn't care or were very or somewhat uninterested in participating. And in the written in comments, some of you talked about family survey fatigue. We know this is a really real thing, and just everybody being tired of being asked to fill out forms, etc., is certainly very understandable. Next slide. So we wanted to just remind everybody that our bottom line from the PSU CCF side is that it's always, always family's choice, right? We are not in the least bit interested in pressuring families. Families should do what feels right to them. That's our absolute bottom line. We also sincerely believe that every family deserves the opportunity to be heard in this evaluation, to offer their feedback and to have that feedback elevated to DELC leadership and to the legislature. So there may be ways that we can better understand and work to address these concerns about participating. The other sort of pragmatic piece around how the evaluation will be viewed is that it will be viewed as a lot stronger if we have a higher rate of participation. So usually we hope for something like 60 to 70% participation in these kinds of data collection. And what we had this time around was 40% for the soft launch. And the reason why we look for 60 to 70% is because it means there's a much better chance that the data is actually representative of all of the families. There's always a concern if we hear from less than 60 or 70%, that maybe there are families out there that we're not hearing from who have different feedback that would change what we're hearing and how we understand what families are telling us. So again, the PSU CCF team is more than happy to help brainstorm and support all of you in the next round of data collection. If you did feel like you struggled a little bit in knowing how to support family participation. Next slide, please. Overall, you rated the soft launch a success. So 3/4 of you said it was very or pretty successful. And then another 16% said it was a good effort for a first try, which I kind of loved because that was the whole point of the soft launch, right? Nobody was looking for or shooting for perfection here. We were just all learning together. So absolutely, actually a fabulous effort for a first try. But again, there were a few grantees who did experience significant challenges. So 11%, which means 2, if we do the math, said that the soft launch for them was somewhat unsuccessful. So again, we want to be sure if you did experience those challenges to get in place any kind of supports that we can for the next round of data collection. And we're absolutely committed to reaching out, and please reach out to us as well to troubleshoot those challenges and provide support next year. We did hear a few specific requests that we wanted to reflect back, let you know that we heard these. There was a request for support creating Google Forms for data collection. And in fact, some of the grantees did do that, and we're absolutely happy to help. Creating QR codes for data collection. Some grantees did that as well. And again, we're happy to support with that. There was a request for help orienting staff to the evaluation. And I think this speaks to maybe building support and understanding of the purpose of the evaluation and the tools themselves. So again, the CCF team is happy to help with that. We also did hear that there might be a need for some additional language translations, which the team is happy to facilitate and to resource. Okay, so just a reminder of our timeline here, thinking about planning for next year's data collection. This is our first round, our very first round of official data collection. So it's kind of exciting. It's kind of a big deal. This will be the data that goes to the legislature to really support the effectiveness of all of your programs. Both the family tools that you just tried out in the soft launch and the new child outcomes tool will be used. So that's 3 total tools. Both, I guess I should say all three tools will be used only once near the program end. So just like with the soft launch, we're aiming for maybe mid-April 2025. And again, we're hoping for at least 60% participation of families and children. That's kind of a loose aspirational goal. But again, knowing that participation is always voluntary. And nobody is ever asking you to pressure families in any way to participate. Next May through July, we'll be focused on data entry, the analysis, and then report writing for our report that is due at the end of August 2025 to DELC and then to the legislature. And the reason that I highlighted this in this purple color is because that is a really hard deadline. There isn't any wiggle room there. And wanting to explain, because there were some comments in the feedback survey asking, why can't we push data collection out a little bit further? Totally understand how that might make sense and be more convenient. And unfortunately, because we have this hard deadline, we really do need to stick to the April date, or we just won't have time on our end to do all of the data entry, analysis, and report writing in time to meet this hard deadline to the legislature. It is true that if it made sense for your program, you could consider beginning data collection earlier than April, if that would be helpful. So that'll be another thing for us to touch base about as we start planning for the next year. Okay, so next steps. It probably feels like we just finished the soft launch, and that's pretty much true. And here we go, we're gearing up again for the next round. So Alexis is going to start reaching out to each of you probably in early October, maybe late September, but we also know that September is a pretty wild month for starting up program. So we want to make sure that we're not overwhelming you right off the bat. So we'll start in those conversations by reviewing the process for collecting the family data, like how that went, troubleshooting any issues that came up in the soft launch, and then start planning for the child level data collection, since this will be the first time that you all are trying that tool out. And that will involve, again, a number of steps, the kind of parallel the planning process that you engaged in for the family tools. So first, identifying any needed adjustments to the tool, remembering that these tools can be customized to the particular families and communities that you're working with. We did get a couple of comments in the feedback survey that some families felt like some of the questions weren't relevant, and some staff felt that way too. And that is 100% legit. They're not going to be relevant to every single one of you because you're 25 very diverse programs. And so we invite you, if there are questions that aren't relevant, to take them out. So that's something that Alexis can talk with each of you about. And there were a number of grantees for the soft launch who made exactly those kinds of changes, made some changes to the wording of particular questions, just remove some questions that didn't apply, and in some cases added some additional questions that they were interested in asking. Alexis will also talk with you about any needs for language translation and really start thinking through the logistics for collecting the child data in a very similar way that you work together to make a plan for collecting the family data. And then to identify any staff training or support needs as well. And so this process will start, like we said, probably in October, and then just continue meeting with Alexis as needed. It's very much as needed. If you don't feel like you need to, there's no pressure to do so, but Alexis will be available. And then looking to implement all three of the tools in and around April next year. So that's what we got. Oh, thanks, Alexis. Alexis is linking to the updates page in the chat, where we do try to provide regular updates as well as the new versions of the child tool as they become ready. We're in the process of getting a number of language translations done right now. So those are posted there as they become available as well. So with that, we just wanted to open it up for any comments or additional questions that came up for you maybe while you were doing the feedback survey?
We did have a question in the chat asking if these tools are going to be made available for more general use outside of the ECEF funded programs.
That's an amazing question because we are right in the middle of having a conversation with the evaluation leadership group about that. Both inside DELC and outside of DELC, the CCF team has been getting a lot of questions. Can we use these tools? There's a lot of interest, which I think is exciting. And we need to kind of figure out a process with the ELG around who owns these tools, if anyone, and who should be allowed to make changes to them, if anyone, and just sort of establish some guidelines and processes for sharing the tools. But I think there's a lot of interest there.
Any more questions for Lorelei or Alexis before we move on to the next part of our agenda?
I just had one more question. So the final deadline for submitting data is like April 31st. Is that what it would be? Or 30th?
Yeah, I mean, for the last, it's not really quite that, well defined. What we were targeting for it's not last year, this spring was April 15th, but of course there's always wiggle room. We're not going to turn anybody's data away by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that it could come too late in the process to be included in the analysis, which would just be a shame.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Lorelei and Alexis, for that sharing. And if anyone does have questions, we can circle back at the end if something comes to you that didn't present in this moment. So let's see. Looks like I think I'm on video. I think you can all see me, but I'm seeing someone else's screen. Hopefully it's working properly. So we're moving to the next part of our agenda, which is just reviewing. I wanted to review really quickly the end of the year activities. Sometimes we call them deliverables, but we're trying to use the word activities instead. So I have 2 or 3 things just to reiterate, and then a new item to discuss. So we have this year the budget reconciliation and the end of the year report that are both due at the same time. And the original due date was extended because we did not have the end of the year report ready in time on July 1st. We had been working to create one based partly on a previous report from a previous programmatic or grant cycle, and to add in some additional pieces that we wanted to touch on. So the revised due date, the extended due date for those 2 items is August 26th. And I also know we recognize that many staff, again, have been out during summertime. And so if you do need an extension request, you can reach out via email, or also you can go on the ECEF portal and use the requests and submissions link to request an extension. The end of the year report is not an option on the drop down for an extension request, but you can write it in the notes section so that we know which document you're referring to. So I wanted to pause quickly just to see if anyone had questions on the budget reconciliation or the end of the year report based on communications I've sent out and what we've shared in previous webinars.
Emma, I have a question.
Yeah.
I know that our finance department does pieces of financial reports and
Mhm.
they're in, I'm just wondering if I should assume that they've received, they're in a different building than I'm in. Have they received a notice about the extension? Because you mentioned budget report as well, right? Sorry that cut out for me.
Yeah, there's a budget reconciliation. So because I have so many contacts within the like ECEF contacts, whether it's like sometimes I just have a couple for one agency, sometimes I have like 10 different contacts for a grantee. And so it's always great if you know there's someone that needs specific information. If you could forward that information to them and send me an email just checking with me to see if they're on my list of ECEF grantees that I send communications out to. I'm always kind of I'll get feedback that, oh, someone's missing from the list or there's staff members that have left. And so it's kind of always a work in progress, shifting and adjusting the list. So
And this is the first year that this would have been the first full year in the new system. And so that's another
right.
question I have for them because I know they're on it, but I don't know how
Mhm.
often.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah.
And Heather, what you can do is give them my email and they can reach out as well.
Okay, great.
And if you don't have that, I'll throw it in the chat regardless in a moment. But
Okay, thank you,
because they
Brandon.
can reach out for any fiscal questions. But essentially the big difference is now that we've switched from a year grant cycle to the biennium,
Mhm.
that's why we're doing this kind of little check-in and reconciliation in the middle. So
Yeah,
that's where the difference is for it. And they can easily reach out. And if they've been handling everything, most likely they've done reconciliations before with like the whole department. So it shouldn't be too far
yeah.
out of their scope. But
We're just trying to kind of come online more because we are in
yeah,
two different spaces and we don't have
one,
tons of visibility into that. So
right,
but we'll-
100%. And if they need more time because they didn't get the information and they just got it,
Okay.
they just need to email me and let me know. But
Okay. Financial.
and
Okay.
Alexandria, yeah, you'll use the portal.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if there are questions in the chat, because I'm recording and sharing my screen, I'm not opening the chat so that it doesn't block the screen. So Brandon, if you can read out any questions that come in the chat.
Yeah. Alexandria asked if they should use the portal for the end of the year report because they only see
Okay.
the monthly. And we're going to cover that in a moment and where those
Yeah.
kind of end of year reports are going.
So the end of the year report is its own link. So you're not submitting it through the submissions, the requests and submissions link. That is just if you're going to request an extension. I sent out the end of the year report as a link to a Jot form. So it's hosted on a service called Jot form, if you're familiar with that. And you're able to save your progress while you're working on it so that you can revisit it later if you don't have all the information in one sitting. I also attached a PDF version of the report in Spanish and English, and those are just for reference. Those are not what you'll be turning in. Those are basically if you have numerous people at your agency that host or hold the different pieces of information, you can have them add it to the PDF and save it. And then one person would take all the information for the report and enter it into the Jot form online. So you're submitting online. It's not through you're not emailing a PDF to us and you're not going onto the portal to submit the way that you submit other reports. It's its own individually hosted report. Are there any other questions related to that piece?
Emma, are we able to go into the portal to enter the end of the year report? Because I tried to use the link and it wasn't working.
To access the end of the year report?
However, I was trying to go in there, click on that link, end of the year report, to enter my information in there, but am I not able to do it that way?
That's a great question. It should be posted on the portal. I checked the link a couple of times to make sure it worked, but I sent out an email. So I think the best way to access it would be to search your emails from me.
Okay.
And we can follow up afterwards if you didn't receive that. I will mention that some grantees have reported that we're having an issue with when I send out emails that have numerous attachments, they're not receiving them. And so I am inviting anyone that thinks they might not be receiving certain emails from me with attachments to please reach out. There's nothing on my end indicating that it's not going out to everyone that it should, but there might be some sort of like megabyte, some like a restriction on what people can receive attachment wise. And so I've already reached out to our IT department to try to find a solution. And a good email to reference to see if that's happening to you is that after these webinars, within a few days, typically, I send out an email that has the slideshow presentation from the webinar, both in English and Spanish, and a link to the webinar that's recorded and posted on YouTube. And so that's how we found out that some people aren't receiving it, because they haven't been getting those webinar recap emails from me that have the PowerPoint presentation attached. So you don't need to respond here and let me know, but you can shoot me an email if you think that that's happening with you. And the end of the year report link, when I sent it out, it did have attachments because the PDF version of the report was attached to the email in English and Spanish. So if you can't find the email that has the end of the year report link, please reach out to me and I'll send it to you without the PDF attachments to see if that works better.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? And feel free if it comes to you, I'll keep moving along, but if something comes to you, just come off mute and ask. So besides the budget reconciliation and end of the year report, we have the other activity or deliverable is the second year of the program service delivery calendar. So that is going to be due on September 1st. And again, I'm happy to grant extensions if you've had staff or unforeseen circumstances that have made it difficult or will make it difficult to turn in your program service delivery calendar by the 1st. So just reach out and or submit an extension request on the portal. Let's see, anything else related to that? Oh, I wanted to mention that in future grant cycles, I'm going to be simplifying the program service delivery calendar a bit so that we're not asking you to break services down month by month. I think I've gotten feedback and I've just noticed that it's a very time-consuming and tedious way to do it. I think someone asked if they could still have the option when I chatted with them individually about this possible change. They asked if they could still have the option to do it month by month, and that would be totally fine with me. But I think I'm going to break it down quarterly in coming grant cycles, to just eliminate the burden of needing to repeat yourself if your programming more or less stays the same throughout the year or through different quarters of the year. So I didn't make that change for this one because we're in the middle of a grant cycle since we changed to a biennium. But know that I'm working diligently to try to make things more user-friendly, not ask for excessive amounts of details that we don't necessarily need in order to understand the scope of the work that you're doing. Does anyone have any questions about that piece?
Emma, there are some questions in the
Oh.
chat.
Okay.
I was gonna say, there's a question that's asking, who do we send the service delivery calendar to?
Oh, so there is a drop down on the ECEF portal in the requests and submissions link to submit the program service delivery calendar. So you don't send it to anyone specific. You use that link. It's towards the top, on the right side of the ECEF portal. So I hope that clarifies. It's the same requests and submissions link that you use when you're submitting like a budget or anything that's not a monthly report that we ask for. Brandon, was there any other question?
Yeah, there is a, Jeffrey asked about the end of the year report, but didn't see one on there. But I just want to clarify, Jeffrey, you did receive the link, right? The email link. If you could either respond off mute or in the chat.
Yes, mine wasn't really a question. It was just a statement that I had
Got it.
gone to the portal to look and see if there is a link on there. There doesn't appear to be one. I'm not concerned because I have the email with the link.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Jeffrey. I think because we've also been working on the new monthly reports, that scrambled my brain a little bit. I don't think the data team, based on what you're seeing, that they posted it on the portal. So I can have them post it. I think because it's like a short-term thing that won't stay there. I think their preference likely was to just have me send it out. But I'll check with them just to see if it makes sense to post it. For some reason, I thought that that they had, but I knew that like they had sent me the link, and that's what I was testing and opening up to check to verify it wasn't through the portal. So please, for anyone that did not receive or can't find the email with the end of the year report, please reach out to me. I can also send it again after this webinar without the attachments, just to kind of cover our bases to make sure that everyone receives it. And if you don't at that point, then we have a bigger issue with like checking my list of contacts and just making sure that things are going through to everyone. So thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, Alexandria didn't get the email, so if you could reach out and just connect with Emma so we can get you that link, but probably just sending it out without all the attachments again, just to cover bases. Probably a good idea.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, those are all great questions. I'm sorry for the confusion where I thought it was posted on the portal. It is not. It's the new, that leads to the next section. It is the new and revised combined monthly reports that are posted now and are live on the ECEF portal. So I'm not sure how many of you have had the chance to look at them yet. And I had sent out, I believe it was in the newsletter, We've had various communications, so I think that was the one where I asked grantees to wait to complete their first monthly reports for this first month in this programmatic year for July until we had the new reports finished. And a few grantees did, I think they missed the email or it didn't go through or something. And so we did receive some reports submitted using the old reporting forms. So I'll be reaching out to each of you individually. I think I heard from the data team that for a couple of you, it will be okay to keep the older forms that you use to submit. And for a few, there's a specific reason why we might need to ask that you redo them on the new form. So that's the little disclaimer at the beginning. And so I wanted to highlight the main changes with the reports. And previously, we've had 3 reports. We've had the programmatic report, the parent demographic report, and the child demographic report. And we worked to combine them into one report using logic based on what you click. So if you say you have no new parents and no new children in any programs, you won't be asked to complete the demographic information. And so that kind of eliminates the burden of needing to go into the demographic reports and put zeros if you don't have new families to enter. And we're hoping that it just makes it more concise and also eliminates the possibility of one of the 3 reports being missed when you go to fill out your monthly reports. So the other pieces are that we made it possible for you to count both parents and children in any of the 3 ECEF program components. So for parent education, for parent-child interaction, and kindergarten transition, if you have parents enrolled or actively participating, or children enrolled and actively participating, we want to know that for each of the program components. And you would just enter the demographic information one time for when a new child or parent joins any of your components that you're running. So that would be an unduplicated number that we're receiving for the demographics. We also tried to make the directions very detailed and clear. It did make for some more reading to have to do before you enter your information. And it's in English and Spanish. So some of the descriptions appear much longer because it's in both languages. But we're hoping that after you read through everything and after the first couple of months of entering the information, you won't have to read through all the details anymore because you'll kind of know what to expect and know what's being asked. And we also still have the old reporting forms. So the 3 that are separated out, the 3 monthly reports, we have those on the ECEF portal. And those are only to be used if you have a missing or late report from the previous year. So reports for the 23-24 programmatic year, you can go in and use those 3 fill out your reports as you did for the last year. But if basically from reports starting now for July until the end of the biennium, we ask that you use the new report form. And we did our best to check it over many times to make sure there weren't errors, but it's possible as we're human that there might be a mistake somewhere. So please give us feedback if there's something that doesn't seem quite right, or you have a question, or if the logic when you click on something, if a box that shouldn't open up opens up, just let us know, because there's always some glitches when we roll out a new report or new system. So with that, I'm assuming there might be some questions. Not sure, but I'll pause for questions. And Brandon, if there's any in the chat, let me know.
Emma, I have a question on the monthly report. Since it came out, when is it due?
Yeah, so I'm not giving a specific date for when it's due. Basically, I gave the I'm giving the caveat that it's okay if it's late. So if it's going to be late, you don't need to submit an extension request. We're just expecting that many of the reports that are being filled out this month or next month for July will be coming in late. So I'm not putting a hard date on that. I would say we hope and expect it would be in at least by the time you're reporting on the following month. So yeah, but I wanted to give lots of time and flexibility, especially since it's a new report. So you might have questions and there could be glitches that are unforeseen on our end.
Okay, thank you.
Does that, yeah. I hope that's clear enough. We're trying to be very flexible with it. So yeah, and give people the opportunity to reach out if they need help.
Emma, I just wanted to make sure I understood. We have a summer program that will primarily be what we report for July. It's a summer kinder transition program. And I had the question from the supervisor on that program. For parents, we have a parent component, but not all parents participate. So we're really only reporting on the parents that are participating in that parent. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, yep.
We don't have all the application information
Yeah.
for others, you know. Yeah.
That's a great question because I do want to make sure that's clear. Just because we've added the ability to add parents and the demographic information, it does not mean that we're requiring you to collect parent information if it's a child-centered program. But if I know for a lot of kinder transition programs, there's also a parent component. So we really wanted to capture that. So if some parents are not enrolled or actually participating, then you do not need to add them, just the ones that participate.
It's a much lower number, and we're setting up we're setting up kind of more efficient data collection systems for across our teams. So one thing we wonder, we don't collect income information in the same way that other programs do. And so we've always kind of left that in the demographic report because it's just not something we've collected. Is it the expectation, or is it just if you have it, this is great? Or is it the expectation because it's going to require doing business very differently for some of our programs?
That's a very good question as well. So I talked about this recently multiple times with different colleagues, and it is not required. So if you can, it's strongly encouraged to collect that information, but it is not a requirement. You're welcome to put check the unknown box. We created a box that says unknown. And I know when I was doing similar work on the programmatic side, I often felt a bit uncomfortable asking families for that information because not everyone is comfortable to share. It can be a sensitive area to discuss or to fill out on a form and feel like you're not sure what's going to happen with that information. So we are flexible and understand if you're not able or prefer not to collect that information, but it is helpful for those that do collect it. It's good information to have in terms of like the equity piece and looking at who we're serving, what populations we're reaching. And yeah, so it's valuable, but also not required.
Thank you very much.
I have another question on the monthly report.
Yep.
So we have a like our family resource advocate program where we do some home visits. It's like we're meeting with the parents, so they're like our client, but we only serve them if they have a 0 to 5-year-old in the home. And we give them parenting supports and resources and early childhood programs that we then assign them to if they want to take them. But do we, since we're not actually like physically working with the child, would we not count that child even though they're part of our caseload?
Are those children being entered into a different program component of ECEF or not?
Sometimes, but not always.
Sometimes. Okay.
And that's where I'm
That's
like,
a
I
good
get confused.
question. Yeah, I
Because
think,
it's considered like parenting education on the way you guys have it set up. So I record the parent there, but do I include the child that we know that they have? Because we're helping make that family, more stable, and we give them wraparound supports with that, or do we not include that child until they, like if we refer them to one of our Kinder Ready programs, would I
Mhm.
not include that child until they actually go to that program, or do I include them as the whole family unit and track them that way as parenting education for the whole family?
That's a good question. I feel like in this moment, I don't have a super concrete answer. It might be something you and I need to chat about later, but I I mean, I want you to capture as many people as you're reaching essentially, and I do consider that like reaching because you're servicing a household, but
Right.
they're not necessarily like enrolled in the program essentially. So it's a tricky one. I think it could go both ways. I think I might need to chat with other colleagues to see what their thoughts are. Dana often has good insight into those things, and she is not here. She had to hop off early. But I mean, I think if it really is just directly working with the parents and like regardless of if you're connecting them to resources and early learning supports, I think we would likely still just have you enter the parents. Um, that's the side that I'm erring on, but I will look into it and I'll circle back with you, Shauna.
Okay, that'd be perfect. Because I think last year it was kind of gray area, and I think we tried to do the kids, but
Mm-hmm.
like if we didn't gather all the kids' information because we're just meeting with the parents, sometimes it wasn't real
Right.
accurate until they got enrolled. So then I couldn't tell if they were actually new or, we
Okay.
already served them. So when we're doing the demographics too, I need to make sure that we're collecting it when you want us
Right.
to.
Yeah, and I think whatever we determine in response to your question, I'll likely send that out to all grantees because I think likely other folks might have that same question, and it would be useful since I don't have a tangible answer yet, to circle back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Emma, sorry, this is Jadira from Salem Kaiser Coalition for Equality. I have a
Hi.
question. We have the opportunity to navigate the new portal right now with the updates, with the program report, but also I have a questions about if you know if there is any updates in the monthly expenditure report and DELC in the portal, or we are going to continue to use it the same way that we usually use.
Thank you for your question. I'm going to let Brandon answer that if you have an answer, Brandon.
Yeah, I would definitely have to probably check in with a few people for that. Because off the top of my head, I don't have one, so I do apologize. If you email me, I could definitely get one from one of several people. And on top of that question, just to answer one that popped up a bit ago, there is no change to the monthly expenditure report process in Portal or how we're doing AMS claims. This is only for those monthly reporting bits, the programmatic bit, not the fiscal side of it.
Okay.
'Cause
Yeah,
that was asked in the
part of the question.
chat.
Okay. Yep. The fiscal side has no changes
Right,
that I know
at
of.
this
Got it.
time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that's kind of it. But for the rest of it, if you email me, I can get more clarification too. So,
Brandon, are there any other questions in the chat?
no, that's it. Just some thanks to others for asking questions about what we're reporting on, and then Kamisha has
Yeah.
their hand up.
Yeah, I just had a question because I submitted the new version of the monthly report yesterday. I will say all the text and the translation was quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
Just some feedback around that. Also, so I know that for July, we're supposed to provide more of like a baseline of folks enrolled. So I had put those numbers in the total, but I was like, oh, maybe I was supposed to put that in new, and then collect the demographic information in there, because then I didn't provide the demographic information. So I'm wondering if maybe I'll have to resubmit.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And yes, so that's something I also should have covered during this overview, is that for this month, since for when you're reporting on July, because that is the first month programmatically in the second year of the biennium, we are counting all participants as new. Because essentially like the programmatic year ended in June and now we're starting fresh in July. So unfortunately, we will likely need to have you resubmit because we'll need the demographic information for the families that you entered as new.
No problem. I do have it. So I guess I'll
Okay.
just email you to, do I need to email you, or can I just, it would probably be easier for me to just resubmit it if that's possible. And then just
Yeah.
let you know.
You can resubmit and we can delete the one that you've
Okay.
already submitted. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I do apologize that there is a lot of explanation and detail in the descriptions, and part of that is because we had gotten lots of questions like and confusion around what we were asking in specific areas, and so we tried to give lots of examples and kind of over explain, which I know is a lot. And I think it's not ideal that we have the English and Spanish together because it makes it very long. I asked about having two different reports, one in English, one in Spanish, but the other programs that have done that have run into logistical issues. So I think that would make a big difference in how visually overwhelming it is. And unfortunately, it didn't seem, based on others' experiences, like the best way to move forward. So it's possible after this programmatic year that we could revisit separating those reports in English and Spanish, and that could help. And yeah, I think ideally we wouldn't have that much detail, but we were attempting to over explain to eliminate confusion. But I know it is a lot visually, so I appreciate the feedback, and I am sorry that it's yeah, a lot when you open it up and are trying to just glean the information that's needed. Zakia, I see. Oh, Brandon, you can respond, and then Zakia.
Oh, I was just gonna let you know that
Okay.
she had her hand raised.
Yeah, go ahead, Zakia.
Oh, I was just gonna say that for July, since we weren't open for services, I put 0 for the form. Should I redo it and add all the students?
No, if you're not open in July or not running any ECEF programming, you should just put zeros. And then as soon as, even if it's returning children, as soon as they start again, you'll add them all as new, even if they're returning the previous year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was planning for the September report. Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I know a lot of our grantees they will be putting 0 for July because services haven't started yet. And it's a month often for training and staff development and outreach. So great question, Zakia. Thank you. And we ended up having so much to cover that we do not have time, obviously, for our breakout room. So I'm going to hold that until our next meeting. I really want grantees to have the opportunity to connect with one another. And so I will move it to next month's agenda, and we'll do it earlier on in the agenda so that we're sure to have time. But these details are super important for us to cover and be able to respond to any questions that come up. So
Yeah, and
Brandon?
there's a question in there about how the report will look different since their school is September and ends in August. So maybe for that, Stephanie, maybe reach out and make a plan with Emma on how you want to do that, question mark.
Is the question in terms of reporting?
Yeah, it just it specifically or Stephanie, if you want to jump on and explain, because you will be able to explain your program better than me, I think. But it's that the report will look different on how they adjust it since their end of year report and beginning year is a bit different.
Yeah, hi. So my question is, I just kind of needed, I think the last question asked kind of clarified it for me. We do not have children in July and August. We start in September. So my question was, the reporting you're talking about now is the end of our last year. So the number of children, parents, demographic is going to look so different than when we return in September. So are there two types of reporting? Are you asking what last school year looked like compared to another report that is asking what this school year report looks like? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think I'm understanding you correctly. So because our cycle ends at the end of June, essentially, regardless of what your programmatic cycle looks like, our end of the year report that we have coming due is only asking you to reflect on anything that happened before the end of June. And anything that happens after June, so in July, even if it's children from the last programmatic year, you would enter them all as new because for us, it's a new programmatic grant cycle. And you would enter 0 for August and September because you don't have any new, you would enter 0 for new children and parents because you don't have anyone new joining. But there are many grantees who have programming that carries over from June to July. And so unfortunately, it does mean that you're entering, like starting July 1st, anyone that was a carryover from summer programming will be entered as new at that point. Does that answer your question?
Yes, totally. So I just want to verify that. So the reporting that we will turn in will be correct because we reported as end of the year. And since we, like you said, we don't have children at the next, by August, we did put 0. We had none, no new families. So then, yes, that answers my question. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. Great question. Thank you. Any other questions? These are all great and got me to think of things that I should have covered and I didn't. So thank you. We didn't have space to include it in today's webinar, but DELC is conducting a customer service survey that they're sending out to grantees that receive programming or funds across the board. And I had provided a list of 1 contact for each grantee because that's what was requested from their team. So they sent out customer service surveys to 1 person from each grantee team, but they also asked me to mention it again at our webinar so that those who didn't receive it know that they are invited to fill it out. And I didn't include a slide for it because we didn't have time on our agenda today for it. But in our webinar recap that I send out, I will send a little blurb of information about the customer service survey and a link to complete the survey. So I just wanted to give a little plug for that at the end here. So we're not doing breakout rooms. We're going to use the time to connect with each other in groups of 4 or 5. And it was really going to be very open to where whatever you were interested in chatting about, or sharing, and I had some guiding ideas. We'll be moving that to next month. So you'll have time to connect, and I'll be sure to carve out enough time. So in closing, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or concerns. My email is listed there and my phone number, and Brandon, specifically for any fiscal related questions, you can reach out to them with their email and phone number. And you can always schedule a one-off meeting with either of us with our link in our email signatures. We both have a live link there. And then we also have towards the top of the ECEF portal, there's somewhere you can click to schedule a meeting with us. And all of those links check against our calendars, so you're sure to schedule a time where we're available. Are there any questions before we sign off today? Looks like we have 3 minutes left in the question period.
And not so much a question, but I know August is super busy for everyone. My children just got their 4-H goats and they're adorable. So if anybody needs goat spam, feel free to message me and I will happily send you some pictures to give you some happiness of some goats if you would like.
I love that. Brandon is very excited about their goats and they're very cute. So yeah, if anyone would like to see pictures, I'm sure Brandon will send them out.
Correct. You know, just to help make August a little more palatable for folks if you need it. Or if you just need goat spam. Either way.
I love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much to everyone for being here. And if, as I said, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions and we'll be sending out a follow-up email. Enjoy your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.